Hello and welcome to another episode of Feeding Fatty. This is Roy.
This is Terry.
Of course, we are the podcast chronicling our journey through wellness or to wellness. We started a lot talking about diets and what we eat, not necessarily a diet, but just trying to take a more a balanced approach at what we eat, getting away from sweets and carbs. We've also kind of gotten into exercise and movement, which is important, and mindset as well. We talk a lot about what's going on in our life, and we also have professionals that we bring on from time to time, talk to them. So today is no different. We have Dr. Linda, and I'm going to let Terry introduce her.
Dr. Linda Marquez Goodine is a chiropractic physician, coach, author, speaker, wellness educator, and podcaster who has been practicing since 1993. I thought that was a typo. I always say it's 19 something. No, it's not. She received her undergraduate training at Cal State University Fullerton and attended Los Angeles College of Chiropractic. She's a certified functional medicine practitioner with extensive postgraduate training in nutrition, functional blood chemistry, functional endocrinology, brain chemistry, thyroid health, and managing obesity. She's been studying health and nutrition for over 40 years. Her mission is to help people get to the root of their health problems, fix it with a natural, drugless, personalized step-by-step plan, including addressing the mind, body, and spirit for optimal living. Dr. Linda, thank you so much for coming on. There's so much more to say, but I want to get right into talking to you. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on with us.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I've just been so excited to chat with you. You both you're full of just life and I love your personalities.
Oh,
Thanks.
Oh, that's
You're like, when I lived in the South for a little bit, like in South Carolina, I lived in North Carolina and Tennessee. And then it's like you start talking like y'all and thank you, ma'am. And it's just like, where is this Southern girl coming out of,
Oh my gosh, I would have been backhanded if I didn't say ma'am or sir. I still say it and people get offended now. It's like, oops, I don't mean to offend you, but
It's funny because I spent some time in the Northeast, and I always said like a cashier at the convenience store, I'd be thank you, ma'am. Who you calling ma'am? It's like it was an insult to be called ma'am there.
oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Well, tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yes.
I mean, did you grow up wanting to, help others? Has this kind of been something that led you down the functional path?
Yeah, I've always kind of been, I always say I'm still a nerd. I've always been a nerd. And I kind of go back to middle school when I just, you have those moments, you have that day that you just know something's just going to change your life. Well, I had that moment when I was in middle school when a kid he said some not so nice things about my body. And it was just that one thing that, you turn, I would say, make lemon into lemonade. Life gives you lemon, you make lemonade. And I just, from that time, I think I was about 12 years old, it just totally just changed my life. I started running, which then I fell in love with running. And then my mom started taking me to do you remember Jack LaLanne?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the first gyms that he had opened was in Orange County, California. And my mom would take me to the gym when it was women back in the day. It was just women were on certain days, men were on certain days. And then on Sunday, we would split the time. And ever since then,
Wow.
it really just changed my life. I mean, I grew up under like chiropractic care. We ever got sick, which very rarely we did. My mom went just and got herbs out from the garden and just made us a tea and just said, drink this. We didn't miss school. If we had a little cough, it's just like, drink this, you're going to school. It's not like nowadays.
Yeah.
And she cooked for us at home. We weren't really one to pop a pill for anything. It's like, okay, we're going to go to the chiropractor. And so that's kind of how I grew up. And I knew that I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to help people. And I really wanted to be a brain surgeon because I thought that's like the hardest thing that anybody could do. That would be the coolest thing. But there was a little problem. I hate blood. So,
That
Right.
could hinder it.
I'm like, I don't know about that. growing up under chiropractic care, I just because I ran a lot as well. I ran cross country and I started running marathons and so forth. But that's really what kept me healthy and sane.
Hmm.
And it was just amazing what they could do, the miracles that I saw just in our in the practice, just watching people and hearing the stories, but in our with our family as well. So that's kind of where my journey started. And I went to chiropractic college. And from there, um, physical medicine is working more on the body, the physical portion of the body. And then I got more into what's called functional medicine, which is more working from a nutritional perspective, the biochemistry of the body. So that's kind of how I got involved in what I'm doing now, and I love it.
It's interesting that bringing up Jack LaLanne, because I remember my dad and one of our neighbors, they would get together, I guess, whenever his show was on. I can't remember, like in the evening, and they had this, like a slant board that he did a lot of stuff on slant boards, but he wore those like coverall type things all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Oh my
Leisure,
gosh.
yeah. What my dad had like a jumpsuit. It was like
Yeah,
a
the
jumpsuit
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
and he used to mow the lawn in it with his black socks. That we thought we laughed forever for that. Like, Dad, you are such a nerd. We cannot have anybody come while you're doing this. Oh my gosh. Well, that just seems like such a natural progression for you to go into functional medicine and the holistic side of it, since that's how you were brought up. And so, so many of us, it seems like now we just really want to throw pills at it and if- just fix it, quick fix. We want the drive through. We want everything now. It's just everything on demand. And it can't be like that, especially when you're talking about your health.
I think we've been shaped that way
Yeah.
by social media, the news. I mean, everything you see, and like you say, you want something, you go online, you order it, and you get it in 24 hours. You don't even have to leave your house for anything anymore. If you want coffee, you want, a pizza, which I don't eat, but and pretty much anything. If you wanna, you can Google anything. You want to learn something, you just YouTube it, and it's there instantly. But it's not always the best option, as I always have conversations with patients because they want to get better. They want to say, oh, well, if I do this, will I feel better tomorrow? Yet they've had an issue for years. And
Yes.
a lot of them, like, it's got to be easy. Otherwise, I won't do it. And it really frustrates me. And I think that's kind of where the mind training comes in. And I remember, I believe it's Jim Rohn, who says, don't wish for things to be easier, wish for you to be better.
Right.
Because when you're better, things will be easier. Everything you do becomes easier, not let's wish that this was easier. And that's kind of the progression of where we have gone as a society. And it's really just disheartening because we never get to, I think, reach our full potential if we just want everything to be easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just seems like, I mean, everybody, I feel like everybody wants to do the right thing, but wanting and doing that, it's just not the same thing.
Well, and we found out it's we have started talking a lot about sustainability because I'm that guy that I wants to quit eating cookies today and tomorrow I want to see a big difference. And I know that's not realistic, but it's like that's kind of the world my mind lives in. And so us trying to make these little changes and tweaks that we can mindlessly do from now on, something that we don't have to continually think about, and just because that's us. We know what we should do, and we know how to do it. We know all the right things. It's just, something we can start, but something will typically derail us, like I don't know, just a change in schedule. Sometimes that's all it takes.
Something happy or stressful, either
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the mindset comes in. And that's where behavior modification. And I look at myself as an athlete. And that's how I say I'm an athlete. And if I'm an athlete, that requires daily discipline of mind training, water intake, movement, what fuel I'm putting in my body. And when I'm in practice still, and I do functional medicine and physical medicine, the physical aspect is I'm still adjusting patients, and I will share with them because they come in with like shoulder problems, back problems, knee problems, or a lot of kids, their necks, they're like this the whole time. They have horrible posture, and I'm telling them it's not what I'm doing in here. It's what are you doing the 23 and a half other hours that you're not in the office when I'm working on you. That's
Right.
what we need to focus on. And I think when you change that mindset that, hey, I'm Roy, I'm an athlete in training, and your training is so that you can perform better in life and you can be the
Yeah.
best version of you. Because I always feel if you're not feeding yourself well, you can't express yourself to the fullest potential that I believe God has given you gifts to share with everyone else. So everyone else is losing out.
Yeah,
That's
well, we talked
right.
about this, that it affects us. I've got another business podcast, but we had a guy on that talked about, to be a good leader, we have to have that self-care. We got to get our sleep, we got to eat right. And it's true because, if you don't get enough sleep, you're typically grumpier, you don't make as good or as quick of decisions. And it just, it really affects all areas of our life and our partners as well. Because when I don't feel good, I'm sure, I'm not as active or as quick to do things for Terry as I should be. So anyway, that's a good point to make.
Just leading by example is just such a, it's when you think about it, it's like, oh my gosh, what do I have to lead about? But you do, everybody does. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
And I think about about you saying that you're an athlete,
That's
because I just
awesome.
got to thinking when you said that, I thought, oh, I'm kind of like SpongeBob's friend, that guy, whatever his
Patrick.
name is. Yeah. Some days that's what I feel like.
Oh, I was thinking I'm the athlete that's going to join the hot dog eating contest. That's terrible. I'm kidding. That was an awesome analogy because I was thinking that's something I could do. If I thought I was an athlete and started in that mindset and started going toward that path, it might be, it would help me, not might, it would help me try to get back in because, we get off track. So
Or even asking yourself, what would the best version of you be like?
Yeah.
Do you have having a picture of the best version of you, what would he or she look like? And it's totally up to you, however you want that person to be.
Yeah.
oh, that's awesome. I'm
Yeah.
writing, taking notes.
Yeah, no, that's that vision, because we talk a lot about in business, where do you see yourself, how do we want to get there? So we should do the same thing with our health and wellness as well.
Mhm.
So we had a couple different things we hope to get to, but I think we wanted to start with the 5 health strategies women should know that doctors don't tell them.
Mhm. We'll see how many we can cover.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one, but let me tell you that because this is what I share with my patients, especially as we get older. Number one, I'm like, you have to have protein. I'm like big on you've got to, I tell my patients, men and women, I said the minimal you should be having is 100 grams of protein a day.
Okay.
And have protein for breakfast. Break your fast with protein because you have macros, protein, you have fat, you have carbohydrates. You do not need carbohydrates to live. You do need fat because your brain is primarily made of fat and it will function off of fat, not necessarily. I mean, it does also off of sugar, carbohydrates. However, for every 100 grams of protein that you eat, your body will make 60 grams of carbohydrates. So it's still making carbs
Yeah.
so that other systems in the body can run off of it.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. I said, eat protein for breakfast, and I have them shoot for the goal. First, eat 100 grams of protein. If you want to add in some carbs or something else after that, then go for it. And that way, most of the time they're satiated. Not only that, they're starting to build muscle. And you, when you focus on muscle, the fat just comes off. And you need to have healthy muscle in order to have a healthy body, because there's other systems that benefit from having a healthy muscle mass, in your body. And as you increase it, your fat mass is just going to go down. So that's one thing. I said, eat protein for breakfast and shoot for the 100 grams.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah, because as on the chiropractor side, I guess, our skeletal system is very dependent upon our muscles to make, because that's another thing I know about myself, is not having as strong a back muscles. I tend to slump over probably more than I should.
And sitting at the desk and look in different directions and
Yeah. And take a look at the older population. They look more emaciated. We were just talking like about Jack LaLanne. I mean, he was ripped and he looked amazing. It's like, okay, take him and a person that's running all the time who hardly has any muscle mass and they both break their hip. Who's going to recover faster?
Right.
I'm banking on the guy with the muscle, not the scrawny guy who is going to lose even more muscle mass because they're like, well, I can't move, I can't do anything. Whereas the guy that has more muscle mass, like, well, I can still work my upper body. So give me some weights or let me do something, and they're going to heal and recover. Because most of the older population, they don't actually die from a hip fracture. They die from the complications of a hip fracture.
Right.
And that really hits home personally, because that did happen with a loved one.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm like, even as we get older, and one of the common reasons people don't eat protein as they get older is because the stomach, they make less hydrochloric acid to break down the proteins, so they don't feel like they're hungry. And I'm like, okay, then you need to start supplementing with hydrochloric acid, because yes, you do start making less. However, um, you you need that in order to digest the protein that you're eating.
Okay.
Okay. Interesting.
All right. So what is the second thing?
Number two would be kind of like we're talking about, protein for muscle is resistance training. Our ancestors were moving. They were moving all the time. The men went out and did the hunting, right? They were very active, and the women, they didn't just stay around the grounds and just chit chat. They were preparing things as well. They were doing so. I'm a big believer of, resistance training, moving heavy things, more functional movements. Um, I do a couple different things at the gym. I like to do more I like to do squats. I like to do lunges, anything that's going to work more at the bigger muscles, like chest press, things of that sort. And I've also go to like a combat fitness class, which is a combination of like kickboxing, boxing, kind of martial arts, and doing ropes and push-ups and sit-ups. And you're just moving the whole time. And I believe that resistance training really helps a lot with that, and especially just gives you more confidence.
Yeah.
And as women, I always feel like we need to be more confident, and that once again is going to help build muscle. And when you help build muscle, your basal metabolic rate goes up, so your fat mass goes down. And we have a tendency to focus, I think we've had weight loss, the whole weight loss industry, that's what they're focused on, weight loss. But whatever you focus more on, you have more of that problem. It's just like what happened when, oh, drug-free America. It's like, we're having more
They-
problems with drugs now. Why don't we focus on, hey, let's get America healthy?
Yeah.
Right.
Say no to drugs. That started the whole thing.
Yeah. And it's like, let's focus on, becoming stronger, more functional in our movements, posture. We're talking, kids who are, here, it's sad that I have to tell kids, okay, sit up, shoulders back, the girls chest up, and their head is like forward, and like, okay, you have like a 12-pound bowling ball that's way out here. And it's just creating biomechanically the body. You're going to have a lot of other issues, lower back issues, mid back issues. And so just be mindful of even just your posture as well. So the protein, the resistance training, and the resistance training, you become more in tune with the physicality of your body too, your strength, your posture, function.
And even if you can't make it to the gym, there are a lot of things, and that's a great thing. I've kind of been on this kick today about what a great time we live in. We have so much information and things at our fingertips. But anyway, the point was I was going to say we can look up ways to do the resistance training around the house with things that we have. We don't have to go buy a lot of equipment. We don't have to go to a gym. We can do it, right here.
And there's a YouTube video YouTube, whatever. There's something for everything.
Absolutely. And those bands come really handy too. Those really intense, because you're stressing the muscle throughout the full range of motion. It's
Right.
not like working with free weights at the gym. It's just like, okay, you get to maximal contraction, then you just, kind of release it and go back down. When you're using bands, you're working the muscle in full range of motion. So it's great.
Yeah. And a lot of those too actually can help you incorporate that core strengthening as well, which I know that's really important. We tend to want to focus on our extremities, but that strengthening our core helps with balance and a lot of other things.
100%. Absolutely. And prevents a lot of lower back, problems, which literally, probably, have you both experienced some back problems?
Just like more,
Pain.
well, she's got terrible
I
back.
have a lower back fracture I didn't even know I ever had, and then some crushed disc in my neck, and I just feel like I'm just all shriveled up already.
Wow.
Yeah, and I haven't had anything like that. I was out moving some tree limbs yesterday and think I might have overdone it. So I've been kind of hobbling around like a older gentleman today.
So you're a little sore today.
Yeah, I'm very sore. Yeah.
But I feel like if I move, I feel like some mornings I get up and I just don't want to move because I hurt in those certain areas. But I know once I get going, I do. Close your ears, Roy. Once I get going, I feel better afterward. I'm going to be tired until I address the issues, like I should, I guess. But the more I move, the better I feel along the day, and I'm able to accomplish more.
And once you get going, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going. I'm right. It's moving. It's moving.
Right. It can do this. I can do this. It can do this. I can do this.
Well, sometimes it's like in life and business and health and exercise and everything. It's momentum. If you can ever take that first step, the second step and third step, they just become much easier.
Yeah.
And we have to talk to ourselves a lot of time. We all do, right? I'm not the only crazy one that's having conversations with herself.
Are you kidding? I'm my best listener. Talker, not listener. I don't listen to myself. I talk to myself.
Yeah. Sometimes we have some pretty intense conversations, right? In the morning, it's like, oh, you really need to sleep. You really need to get your rest. The other one's saying, just get up. And the other one said, no, but you went to bed late last night. And it's like the angel and the devil kind of.
Exactly. That is exactly what it's like. And I hope nobody is listening to what's going on in my head, because I know that's it. Straight jacket for me. I'm gone.
We would all be committed if we could all read each other's minds, of really what that person is thinking. You look at them like, what? Give them the double look.
Yeah, if you could just give them the little white bubble, that says what they're thinking, what everybody's thinking, with the little dots on it. Everybody's thinking this. There's a cloud. Oh gosh. Okay, we digress.
Yeah.
So what's the third thing, ma'am?
The third one, I always have my patients do this as well, is check their ability to digest their food. Because you can be eating all this great food, grass-fed, organic, pasture-raised, but if you're not digesting it, it's like you have holes in your tank. So a real easy way to do this is take the baking soda test. There's another test called the Heidelberg test, but you have to go into the doctor's office, and it's like I think it's like $300. You swallow something and they're a little pill, and then it tells you how much hydrochloric acid the stomach is releasing. But if you do like just a baking soda test, I have my patients do this like for 3 mornings in a row. And what they do is take about a quarter of a teaspoon of baking soda, pour it in some water, put it in some water, mix it about 4 ounces first thing in the morning and drink it. They should get a nice healthy belch within like the first 30 seconds, minute. And within 3 minutes, if you don't belch, there's a good likelihood that you're low in hydrochloric acid.
Hmm.
And you need hydrochloric acid, of course, to stimulate and start the whole digestive system, important for gallbladder function, pancreatic output, liver function, opening and closing of different valves in the digestive tract. So I said, you've got to make sure that you're digesting the food that you're eating, because then you're not extracting the nutrients and you're not triggering the nutrient sensors in the brain telling you, hey, I'm full, I've had enough.
Okay, I'm
Interesting.
gonna have
So
to do that.
I'm doing that in the morning too.
I'll do that in the morning, then you let me know.
Okay. So it's a quarter of a teaspoon with
4 ounces of water.
4 ounces of water. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I got permission to belch.
Oh
'cause
my
we got
gosh. I was going to say, I don't think he has an issue. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. Okay, thank you for that. Let's move on to
You
number
okay?
4.
All right, number 4, and we have been talking a little bit about this, but I think you really, really have to train your mind, because in the mornings, when there's times, I normally get up at 4 in the morning because I like to meditate. And I remember this, I had gone to a retreat, and I remember the doctor's he's in my head saying, do you want to stay the same or do you want to change? And the biggest time, there's 2 times throughout a 24-hour cycle when your brain is more susceptible to changes subconsciously. And a lot of the things that we do on a conscious level, we can't change them on a conscious level because they're done via the subconscious level. So it's right when you're waking up, and that 4 to 5 o'clock hour is when those brain waves start to change. Just like your beta brainwave, for example, is when you're awake, you're wide awake and you're ready to go. But when you're sleeping, you're in what's called a delta brainwave. So think about this, you go through delta when you're asleep, and then you're just waking up, it's called theta.
Okay.
And then when you're a little bit more active, it's alpha. And then when you're super active, it's beta. So you're going through that transition where your brain waves are changing when you're just waking up, and also when you start winding down and going to bed. So that's the important time to really work on that subconscious mind, and with meditation, visualization, affirmations, speaking to yourself, recording your goals, and actually listening to your goals in your own voice. It's super powerful.
I've heard that about
Yeah.
many things, but I haven't done it yet because I don't like to listen to myself. Isn't that terrible? I got an excuse for everything. I hear it a lot.
Yeah, do it. It's really powerful. And then, I go back and I have recordings of podcasts that I did like years ago before podcasting became so popular, just being on radio shows. And I'm listening to it. It just came up on my phone. I'm like, wow, who's this girl? She's smart. And I'm like, oh my God.
I am so smart. Oh, that's too funny.
But just listening to your voice, like, Terry, today's going to be the best day ever today, and then you're really just speaking out to the universe what you want.
Yeah.
Because everything we say, we think has a vibrational energy, has a frequency. The Heart Math Institute has done a study that our heart has like this big energy field, and even just when you hug someone, like, heart to heart instead of the side hug, it's so powerful. So I try to like hug my kids and I just, squeeze them.
Yeah.
I'd rather have like a hug heart to heart than instead of like a side hug.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just, when you train your mind, you really can do anything. As you were saying, it's like, oh man, I really don't want to get up. You start finding excuses of why you don't want to get up. You
Right.
know?
Me
Yeah.
so much.
No,
So.
that's interesting because I've tried meditation over the years and just never had much success. But what I think I've learned lately is that it's not going to be perfect every time, but we have to stick with it because I have better days than not. But the other thing we added is doing it at night, right before bed, for me, because it clears my head of all these other thoughts I've got going on. But it really relaxes me and prepares me for sleep. It's interesting how that happens.
And there's so many different forms of meditation. I was at a retreat and we were in meditation from, I want to say it was 4 in the morning till about 8 in the morning.
Wow.
It went by so fast. However,
Really?
yes, we were in meditation for that long and it went by fast. And before I was just like, people were telling me that I attended the retreat. I'm like, there's no way. They're like, it only felt like it was 20 minutes. And it did. It only felt like it was 20 minutes because meditation really is just being aware.
Yeah.
And there's times where I'm like meditating, I'm closing my eyes and I'm thinking about everything else I got to do. And then I just bring myself back to the present moment. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Just come back. And I just kind of, look at like I'm looking at something dark and just focusing on my breath.
Yeah.
And there's guided meditations. And you can start with a 5-minute meditation.
Yeah.
And just focusing on your breath and just being aware of your breath.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do.
Yeah.
I try to do 10 minutes, but try to really focus on that breathing in and feeling it go all the way down, not and holding it for a minute, but then actually, feeling it exhale. The other thing too is I'm a very shallow breather during the day, and so that's a good time to try to train myself to take those deep breaths. But it's hard. I have to admit, it's a challenge to keep recentered or keep in the moment because I'm like you. I'm thinking, oh, when I get through with this, I need to do this and I need to do, and then, but it's okay. I think I've learned for me, it's okay. I just have to say, okay, stop. You can think about that when this meditation is through. You don't have to think about it right this moment. You just have to continually remind yourself and recenter.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too goes back to just, training your mind
Right.
is really even the words that you're saying. Like I would say so many times, I can't meditate or I hate meditating.
Yeah.
And so those are powerful affirmations in a negative way.
Right.
Everything we say, our body encodes that.
Yeah.
And so you'll create situations in your life to make that true.
Yeah.
And,
so
and
true.
so that's where the mindfulness and that's where training your mind, like, I can do this. I can figure it out. There's a way there, if other people have done it, I can do it. I'm not really sure how, but I'm sure I can figure out a way.
Yeah.
And then what happens? You get some sort of YouTube video shows up, a friend calls you, you get a text, something shows up, a book falls off the shelf.
Oh yeah.
Crazy things happen.
Squirrel runs by. It's like Over the Hedge, that movie, squirrel, squirrel. That's me. I can get distracted by anything.
And I think that the self-talk too is
Yeah.
important because my dad used to have a saying that can't never could. And so, when we say I can't, it may be, reframing that to say, how can I? Or let's figure out how we can, not just I can't. Because if you,
If you've already made up your mind.
yeah, it's like whatever you tell what is it? There's a saying about that you can be successful or you can be a failure. It's whatever you tell yourself, you'll make that right. if you say I'm a failure, I'm a failure.
You're
you
right.
will
Yeah.
be.
Absolutely. And as you were saying, if you say something like, well, I can't do that, you can just add yet
Yeah.
to the end
Yeah.
of the sentence. Or as you were saying, how do I reframe this?
Yeah.
Or I have questions, I have patients and people that I coach ask, what would it take for me to blah, 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 blah. And just throw that question out there. What would it take?
Yeah.
And when you do that, something will show up. It's like Google. You're Googling your brain and it's like, oh, why am I so dumb? It's like, okay, well, your brain's going to bring back memories of stupid things you did when you were a kid. And it's like, that's why. And why am I so awesome? Yeah, it's going to bring back situations of, well, you did this, 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 and that. So it's really, so much is really the mind training. And I think that's like a missing component. And that really should be the priority in anything that we do, whether it's business, whether it's relationships, whether it's we're trying to get healthier, lose weight. You've got to train the mind. And as we're talking about, my mind is, hey, I'm an athlete. I'm not competing in the Olympics or anything, but I try to train like I'm an athlete so that I can show up as the best version of myself every single day. So
I
that's how y'all
started,
need to speak to each other.
right. That I started reading, what is it? Breaking the habit of being yourself.
Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yes. We have heard, I mean, his name has been thrown around an awful lot
Yeah.
lately.
No.
And so
Many of
we've
his
got the
books.
book.
Yeah, that's the seminar that I went to, their / retreat seminar that was meditation, neuroscience, and the energy in the room is just like overwhelming me, like positive and just it's life changing.
Yeah.
Spending a week just
What I
doing
was going to say is the visualization
I
and
need
the
to do
talking
that.
to yourself, that use that power for good, not evil. Because I was
Oh,
just,
yeah.
I was just thinking, how could I make a bowl of ice cream appear
No.
over here? So be careful what
Well,
you
you
think.
can't. You're being silly.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, okay. So that was the fourth one, train the mind.
Yep.
And then the
The
fifth,
fifth one that's really overlooked that your doctor probably will never tell you is very rarely, unless they're a functional medicine doctor, is that, food can heal your body.
Yes.
A pill doesn't heal your body. It just turns off certain circuits so you're not feeling things. Just like if you're in pain, it's a pain pill, but it still doesn't fix the problem. And if you look at the top conditions that we're dealing with, it's really bankrupting our country, from cancer to heart disease to arthritis, depression. Those are inflammatory conditions. Diabetes, obesity. Those are all inflammatory conditions that are caused by the food we eat and its lifestyle. And so whatever made our body sick, we can undo it, because the beauty of it is we created the problem, unless you were born without, let's just say, without a spleen, or with one kidney, or without an arm. Those are far and few in between, compared to most people that have type 2 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, thyroid issues, heart disease. Those are all lifestyle. And even if you have a genetic predisposition for those, it's still your lifestyle choices and how you live that led it to you. There's a saying in functional medicine, it's your genes load the gun, but it's lifestyle that pulls the trigger.
Huh, interesting.
So you can have the genetic predisposition for it, but the outcome of it doesn't have to be like your ancestors, because you're choosing to do things differently and live differently. So food can heal your body.
Yeah, and we have learned that. We've talked to a lot of people that is something that we truly believe. And there used to be I guess a theory or a thought that you couldn't reverse type 2 diabetes. But I'm here to tell you that well, let me say, in my opinion, you can. If you eat right and you move right and you do all those things, most people, I guess, let's say the people that's lifestyle has created it, you can turn your lifestyle around.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I have seen that. And even with heart disease and so many people on medication. And I said, you can. Food can heal your body.
Right.
Absolutely. 100%. And it doesn't really benefit a doctor to tell you that if it's typically a 5 or 7 minute office visit. You can't teach them
Yeah.
in that time. And well, why are you eating that? And sometimes it's deeper than that. There's emotional things. And that's why go back into, well, what's going on in the mind? What are you telling yourself? What conversations are you having with yourself? What conversations are you having with everyone else around you?
Right.
So those all really, they all tie in, together, all five of them. But food can heal, and we're talking about food in its most natural state.
Yeah.
Well, that's the key right there, because it's all, so much of our food has just been processed and additives and supplements as well. So you have to be careful with your supplements if you're taking supplements, but you should try to do as much with the whole foods first before adding a supplement, correct?
Absolutely. In with supplements, it's there to supplement. It's very difficult to get all the nutrients that you need unless you spend the entire day just focusing on that, because the food quality today is not the same as it was 50 years ago. Even not saying like McDonald's, they weren't as bad, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. It's pretty bad now. And, so many of the fast foods, I mean, it's fast food, and I don't even know what a hamburger costs at McDonald's now, but I'm sure like they're making a huge profit because it's the the cheapest food that you can get.
Right.
Right. It's probably, that much real beef or whatever they want to call it. And then the rest is just junk that they've thrown in.
Well, nowadays too, there's a science to food. A lot of there's food scientists that there's a lot of chemicals in the food that will actually trigger parts of the brain so that you're not satisfied and you just want more. And there's nutrient sensors in the brain that tells you when you're eating good food, healthy food, that you've had enough to eat and that you don't need to eat anymore. You don't, junk food and chemically processed food does not have, it doesn't censor, it doesn't trigger those nutrient sensors in the brain telling you stop eating. You've had enough. It doesn't. Whereas it's really hard to sit down and eat 2 pounds of steak. I can sit down and eat a pound of ribeye, but I can't sit, I'm sure that, and after a pound of ribeye, I'm like, okay, I'm good for a while.
Done.
Stuffed, I'm just satisfied. Yet people can eat a whole pizza, and there's hardly any nutrients in that pizza, and they're just like, oh, okay, now I've had a whole pizza, and they're more like bloated.
Yeah.
And they want dessert.
It makes them feel uncomfortable, but they still can have dessert.
Yeah.
They'll still keep eating.
Yeah. So what about these, speaking of the, food can be medicine. You see a lot of these charts that they, how the different foods, usually fruits and vegetables, how they align with parts of our body. We've always heard about like the carrots and your eyesight, I think it's tomatoes and your heart, but there are some really good infographics out there that have that. Is there some validity to that?
That's a good question. We used to share that with people. Honestly, I think a lot of it is more just encouraging people to eat more of the real food. It's like, okay, if like you said, carrots are good for the eyes, okay, what does that just mean? If I have a little sliver of carrot, I'm good to go? It's where we have to look at, well, how much of carrots are
Right.
for your eyes, and
Right.
what state and so forth. So yeah, a lot of the vegetables and fruits, there's a lot of vitamins in them and minerals, and but how much do you have to eat of that too?
Right.
So there is some validity to that, but a lot of the studies don't really show, well, what's the quantity that
Okay.
you have to consume? Is it 100 grams, 200 grams?
Yeah.
Then we really are getting into the science of all that.
Well, and then if you have, like one of those, if you have something like type 2 diabetes or thyroid issue or hypothyroidism or hypertension, then you have to worry about like the fruit, the sugar in the fruits, and which of those, break it down even further to which of those fruits actually are gonna be more beneficial to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, especially a person that's a diabetic, they say, oh, yeah, I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. And it's like 6 cups of fruit a day, and maybe like their vegetables considered a carrot or corn or potato. Like, sorry, that's not a vegetable. Doesn't count like as your vegetable serving. And so really everything is customized for each person to figure out, what works for Terry, what works for Roy. You
Right.
may be on 2 different eating templates. Like my eating template is different than my husband. And it's funny because he's like, okay, what eating plan are you on now? What are you doing now? And I'm like, I'm always rotating because it's like the 4 seasons, right? It's like summer, a lot of people eat more vegetables, you lean out more. Winter, you put on the winter coat because you're probably, eating more, you're eating just more, probably snacking on things because you're inside more. When the summer, you're outdoors more. So I'm always changing my palate changes a lot, and so I rotate the foods that I eat as well. Sometimes I'll be carnivore, where I'm just eating meat. And there was a time where I was a vegetarian. There was a time when I was a vegan, and there were different times in my life where I was just doing something different, and it just didn't work for me. It was okay. I went and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back and do plant-based. And then 20 years later, I decided to do plant-based for just a short period of time. And it did not agree with me. I felt horrible. My skin was horrible. I got bloated, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to continue to do this. And for me and for my body chemistry, it didn't agree with it. And we tend to forget that, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with like lectins, and in plants there's you have plants can't hide, they can't run away from us, so they have their own little defense system. And if we eat them, it's just like, hey, they have their internal defense system, like phytates, whereas like an animal, that's going to be our dinner, but they can run.
Right.
And if we're going to eat plants, we're still eating something that doesn't want to be eaten. So it's really looking at each, once again, it's like when I work with patients, it's like, okay, I need to know their history. What you do have kids? What's your ancestry? What medication are you on? What is your goal? To figure out what eating template works for them. And then we just tweak it as we go. And just depends on what is the goal. Are you trying to um, diminish some of the cardiovascular issues you have, or control blood sugar? It's just like, do you want to optimize your thyroid? Because even like you mentioned something before, Terry, about with thyroid, sometimes women who have too many cruciferous vegetables, it can inhibit that whole thyroid conversion.
Right.
So
Hmm.
yeah, there's a lot to this.
Yeah, and it's okay. I think the other important part that you've mentioned is it's okay to tweak. We can start down a path, and it may not be working exactly the way we need or want it to, but maybe it just takes a little tweak to, get it just to that right spot. And that gets back to, I'm sure, you encourage people keep an eating diary so we know what you're putting in. If you're testing your blood, test your blood sugars, stay on top of your blood pressure, and then you can see how your eating affects all these things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how, okay, can we, I know there's so much to talk about, but I do want to make sure that we touch upon this too. So 5 reasons that you're not losing weight.
Oh,
All right. Well, let me run those really quickly.
yeah,
I know. Come on.
Especially with women as we get older, but one is having low thyroid function. Remember, thyroid is a little butterfly gland here that really, you have thyroid receptor sites in every cell in your body, and they are responsible for the basal metabolic rate, so how fast everything goes. So if you have low thyroid, no matter if you're eating clean, you're exercising, but you don't address your thyroid, then you're going to continue to struggle with that. And I've seen that people that go keto, they'll go paleo, they do plant-based, they do vegetarian. And I'm like, well, if you don't know your thyroid markers, and women, the reason women start to have more thyroid issues as we get older is because our estrogen levels drop.
Right.
We need estrogen for healthy thyroid function. And because of stress, that'll interfere with that. So low thyroid would be number 2. Low iron levels as well. I will see that with a lot of women who they don't want to eat, animal products because they've been told the narrative is eating meat is bad for you. Eating meat's going to cause cancer. Eating meat's going to raise your cholesterol. Because I often ask people, I'm like, well, how often are you eating like a steak or ribeye? Oh, I don't eat red meat. I eat really healthy. I'm like, well, what makes you think that red meat is not healthy? It's kind of like having, why is chicken healthy and why is beef not healthy? Why is steak not? It's more looking at, well, how was the animal raised? If the animal was raised on with steroids, antibiotics, does it make the chicken healthy? No.
Right. What kind of meat it is, how it's
Absolutely.
processed, just like all foods.
Yep. So the low thyroid, the low iron levels, we see a lot of that. You need to have healthy iron levels in order for your thyroid to work properly. And of course, when you have low iron levels, you're tired a lot of the time. And if you're tired, you're not going to want to exercise. You get lazy, you get complacent, you're irritable, you're grumpy. So you just don't feel good.
What do you? He's got a funny look in his eye, like,
no,
that's
that's
true.
no. I'm just thinking
Sorry.
about for me that that's the way that goes with with sleep. That starts the downfall of grumpy, not wanting to go exercise.
Not me.
Just leads to a lot of places.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Another one is even we talked about if you're not eating enough protein. So I know that I've gone through that even with patients. It's just like people do keto, and keto is very high fat, kind of moderate protein. I like to do more of a higher protein, higher fat, and then drop down their fat, so that fat is just for the purpose so that they can feel full.
Okay.
And break your sugar cravings.
Yeah.
And then number 4 would be stress. Stress can be physical stress, chemical, emotional stress. And like you were saying, Roy, I mean, one of the physical stressors is not sleeping enough, not getting adequate sleep.
Right.
Because a lot of healing, fat burning occurs while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Your body's recuperate. Anytime that we're awake, your body's in a catabolic state, meaning it's breaking down. Anytime we're resting, we're sleeping, we're in an anabolic state, meaning we're recovering, we're building muscle, recuperating.
Yeah.
So stress, the physical, chemical, emotional. Chemical is, everything that we're eating, everything we're putting on our skin, everything in our environment. And emotional comes with our relationships. The most important relationship is the one that you're having with yourself.
Yeah.
That's where that mindset and the positive self-talk and creating a mind movie, a life script of what would you want, what is your ideal life like?
Right.
And visualizing and seeing it and hear it, and every single day. It's like, man, I tell everyone, I said, I have the best husband in the world. I said, because every morning I say that. I'm like, I'm so grateful. I have the best husband in the world. So I tease him and I tell him, I'm hypnotizing you every day.
That's great.
And he is, and he's an awesome husband, And then the other one that we overlook, and a lot of people overlook, and you're hearing more and more of this now, are gut infections. I don't know how much you're learning about, interviewing all these people, but gut infections are huge with parasites, bacterial, H. pylori, when you're not making enough hydrochloric acid to digest the food. So gut infections are huge. And I really believe that that's one of the one test that everybody should do. And kind of connecting this with COVID, a lot of it has to do with your immune system. And because a lot of people ask me, well, about COVID and the shedding and all this. And I'm like, you know what? A virus is going to thrive in a weak environment. And it's always looking for a weak host. And guess what? 60 to 80% of your immune system is in your gut.
Yeah.
How many doctors are checking your gut for infections? Very few. And that's one thing that's so overlooked. And I think I would prefer running a GI map, a stool test over blood tests sometimes, and probably would get better results with patients, because when you have gut issues, you're going to address that with what? Diet.
Diet. That's right.
Yeah, those are two things that I think we have learned, or I'll speak for me. Those are two things I have learned as we've done this show: gut health, because like you said, was it 70 or 80% of our immune system starts there. And the other one is inflammation. It's like inflammation seems to be, the bane of all bad things that happen to our bodies start with the inflation.
Everywhere. Yeah.
When your body's when you're inflamed, guess what? You will end up with a leaky gut. And there's a gut brain connection as well. So when you have leaky gut, you have leaky brain.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a huge connection with that. Yeah. So inflammation impacts the gut as well.
Right. Excuse me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I remember we've had a few guests that have talked about leaky gut, leaky brain, but recently we had is Delia a neurologist? She's a neurologist. She's something to do with neurology. I can't think of exactly what her title is.
And even a lot of psychologists now are starting to work with their patients, even address them, and psychiatrists, instead of giving them medications, just like, hey, they're running more labs now. And even a person that's depressed can have low iron levels, and they're like, you're depressed, and the low iron levels, or have low functioning thyroid, and they want to put them on some sort of medication. It's like, okay, my low iron levels and my low thyroid levels are also connected to my diet.
Right. Exactly. Well, I know we're running way long, but we did want to get those last ones in there, and we certainly do appreciate that. Did you have something else, Terry?
No.
Okay.
No, that was great. I could talk to you all night. I'm leaky gut, leaky brain. I'm like, oh gosh, now I got to go I got to take my omega 369 oil right after this. I'm working on that. I'm working on not getting Alzheimer's or dementia. I'm working on all of that in my gut.
Well, Dr. Linda, we'll have to have you back on. We could, like I said, we
gosh.
could go on for another hour very easily, but
Absolutely.
yeah, we thank you for your time. What is a habit or a tool? What is something that you do or use every day in your life that you feel like adds a lot of value, professional or personal?
Gratitude.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Goodness bless you.
I don't know. Excuse me.
Oh my goodness.
I'm okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Gratitude is a really good. I mean, that is a really good one. I have to remind myself all the time with my angel and my devil on my shoulder saying gratitude. You have to, if you're not grateful, then you just have to look at the good things that are happening, because everything else will pile on and it'll become a bad situation.
Even on our worst days, we have to remember there's somebody that's got it much, much worse than we do. We have we have third world or first world problems. We've got shelter, we've got food, but we worry about the internet not working or the computer not being fast enough. So we really need to watch that, because then that just adds to needless stress. And I am that person, so I'm speaking from personal experience there for sure. So
grateful that I still have my voice for some reason.
That-
I need water.
That's right. That just goes to show you, you can never drink too much water, right?
Oh,
All right. So, who do you like to work with? How can you help them? And then, of course, how can they reach out and get a hold of you?
well, I would say the people that are willing to take responsibility. So I'm losing my voice here.
My goodness.
I would say people that are willing to take responsibility and are ready to make a change.
Okay.
Yeah, and most people that come to me have been to, oh gosh, seven, 8, 9, sometimes even 10 doctors before, they come and see me, and they're at their wits' end that, see if I can get my voice back here. They're kind of at their wits' end of just, they don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah.
So, excuse me.
No, you're fine. Take it.
And the best way to get a hold of us is just go to our website, drlindamarquez.com.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, and we will include that in the show notes. Again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
It's
you.
been very educational and enlightening, and we
Yes.
appreciate that very much.
And thank you both. And I appreciate what you're doing and just how you're sharing the information and bringing on guests to educate and help other people and just contributing to the good of this world. So I
Well,
want to
thank you.
acknowledge you both and thank you for that.
Yeah. You bet.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank
We're
you.
so glad to have had you on here and would love to have you back.
Absolutely.
Been a wealth
Yeah.
of information.
Well, we never talked. I wanted to also talk about energy. You talked a little bit about that. That's something we've learned a lot about as well. So next time we can do that.
It sounds
All
good.
right. All right. That's going to do it for another episode of Feeding Fatty. Of course, I am Roy.
I'm Terry.
You can find us at www.feedingfatty.com. We're on all the major podcast platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Spotify. If we're not on one that you listen to, let me know. I'll be glad to get it added to make it easier for you to listen. Also, we're on all the major social media platforms, probably tend to hang out on Instagram a little more than the others. So reach out. We'd love to interact with you over there. Also, a video of this interview will go up on our YouTube channel. Go over there and check it out. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of your health.